Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, where wealth strategies and investment wisdom collide, featuring your distinguished host and certified financial planner, Bart Zandbergen.
Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, a showcase for wealth strategies and investment wisdom that's essential for our evolving world. I'm your host, Bart Zandbergen, and as usual in studio today, Paul, our engineer. Paul, how's your day going?
It's going good today here. You know, the sun is trying to peek out, and I'm putting all those, I've decided to save up and get a Pagani, and so I'm feeling good here. I've got a plan for the year here. I figure.
Do you have enough years left to save up?
Don't be mean now here. I can always dream. All right, go ahead.
And I'm super excited to have a special guest today, Colin Boyd. Colin, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Sure. And Paul, I broke my rule again. I think it's the second week in a row.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Remember what the rule is?
I don't remember.
So I tend not to have as guests or hang out with people who are taller, better looking, or younger than me. And again,
Is that why I'm on every show?
You're safe.
Well, I'm younger, so
Well, I'm so excited to have Colin. Colin and I have known each other for about a year now, and we crossed some of the same paths professionally. But Colin comes here with a particular expertise. He is obsessed with helping his clients and entrepreneurs use stages to leverage their platform and sales. He's a certified speaking professional, and he keynotes at conferences around the world on topics such as persuasive communication and selling ideas through infusion selling. Persuasive communication, that's certainly helpful in a marriage, wouldn't that be, Colin?
yeah, to a point. To a point, but it's a different conversation sometimes with your wife.
And I think my 3-year-old has pretty much mastered that already.
Absolutely.
So Colin's clients include Coca-Cola, Suncorp, Fuji, and Hewlett-Packard. He runs a successful high-level mastermind program for content creators and entrepreneurs. He delivers his signature program, Sell from Stage Academy, which helps people turn every presentation into a money-making machine. He is an Aussie, if you haven't figured it out, who lives in Newport Beach with his wife and his 2, I'm sure they're not that crazy kids, Colin.
They're pretty cute.
So, Colin, before we can get started, tell us just a little bit about you. You're an Aussie in Newport Beach. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so it was probably about just over a year ago, year and a half ago. We met early on when I moved to the US. My wife and I had a dream of coming over to the US in terms of our industry that we're in, which is really personal development. I've been a keynote speaker on the circuit for about 10 years, and you know, there's no bigger market in the world for personal development than the US. Mm-hmm. And we had a dream, something kind of on our heart, that we wanted to go after something. And I asked this question with my wife about 2 years ago, which was, you know, when we get to the age of 90 and we look back on our life, would we regret not going after this, not making the move? And the answer was yes, we would regret it. And so from that point, we started to make plans, and then made the big move with our young little kids to move over to the US. And
you and I have talked about that a little bit, and that's a big move. No family here, right?
No family, nothing. Just our little kids and my wife. So
yeah, that's a big undertaking.
It definitely was.
Well, yeah, good. Congratulations on that, and it's working, right? I mean,
it's working well. Yes, absolutely. I mean, to land in Newport Beach, I could imagine worse places to live.
Yeah.
And so I feel very blessed to be here.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you. Since we only have limited time, we have such great things to talk about. So I'm going to get right into it. So, I know through my career that speaking, whether it's on stage or one-on-one with a client, is very, very important. And you and I have talked about that and kind of the work I think that we're going to end up doing together. But why is speaking on stage important for someone's business success?
Well, I think about, you know, anyone who wants to see some level of success in their business or in their career, at some point you're probably going to have to get on a stage. And so, you know, just recently we went to your event and you were on stage and sharing your story and saying hello to the clients and so forth and greeting people. And there's something about a stage that positions people in the consumer's mind. First of all, it positions you as an authority. And so as soon as you step on a stage, your clients, your audience think that you're an authority. Now, whether you are or not, there's just an inbuilt belief system in human beings that if you're on a stage, you're an authority. Now, I know you are an authority. And but even more than that, you step on stage and that amplifies. And so if you're building a business and you're talking to your not only your customers but even your employees, as you're building your business, you're going to be on a stage. And so a stage could be a meeting. It doesn't have to be, a keynote speaker.
Gotcha.
It could be a meeting. It could be a webinar that you run. I know a lot of financial guys who run webinars for their clients. It could be could be an actual physical stage like you did at your event, or it could even be a Facebook Live these days. That's a huge part of people's marketing. So for me, a stage is not just a physical stage. I think there's like a hierarchy. Yes, my main focus is how people communicate and engage an audience from a physical stage. But there's a whole gamut of stages that scale down all the way down to like a Facebook Live or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's probably the future of speaking as well, is it not?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about being confident on stage. And I've heard this over my career, over my life, and I don't remember the exact details, but people have more of a fear of like jumping out of an airplane, or more of a fear of speaking in front of an audience than they would jumping out of an airplane or something along those lines. Is that?
Yeah. I think it was more a fear of
dying or
dying. Yeah. More of a fear of getting on stage than dying. So I think the saying is they'd rather be in the coffin than reading the eulogy. Right. And so, I think speaking is a very vulnerable experience. Sometimes you might have heard this old adage of like, imagine that the audience is naked. I mean, that doesn't help anyone, right? Because you're the one who's naked, standing on the stage. Yeah. And so I know for me, when I was a young boy growing up, I was about 13 years old, and I was first year of high school. I was in a boys' Catholic high school, private boys' school, and had my little cub hat on and my long socks on, sitting in class. It was actually scripture. Yeah. And it was coming up to my turn to read from a passage from the Bible, just kind of reading from it. And it came to me, and I remember reading and stuttering on my words and just feeling like my whole world just shrunk. I don't know if anyone's ever had an experience like that. And I remember after it feeling like, man, I can't even read in front of people. Like, I obviously am not intelligent. Maybe I actually thought maybe I'm an idiot.
As a young man?
As a young man, when I was 13, right? And I remember I had such a visceral and emotionally intense experience from that situation. And that really stayed with me till I was about 23, 24, when I realized that experience had shaped the meaning that I'd created about myself, about speaking on a stage and in public. Yeah. And to the point of, I remember there was different points when I would do a presentation and my hand would shake so much that I had to grab one hand with the other to stop the microphone shaking, because I was in just such a visceral reaction from it. Yeah. And so I want the listeners to know that this is not something that comes natural for almost anyone. Yes, there are some people, but for me, it wasn't natural. It's definitely something that I've had to develop. Yeah. And what I've learned through doing, literally tens of thousands of hours on stages is that a lot of it's in your head. A lot of it's in the mind game. And a lot of us have had experiences in our past that affect us on an unconscious level when we step on a stage. And so it isn't actually even the situation that is affecting us. It's the meaning that we've created from an experience we had in our past that is actually showing up in our present world. And it's affecting our world right there and right then. Yeah. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Matter of fact, that leads into something I was waiting for a break to ask you. I recall that when I was young, like between kindergarten and sixth grade, I remember being fearless. I didn't, to your story, I would get up and read. I didn't mind asking questions in class, nothing. And then right around junior high time, I was completely the opposite. Then I asked less questions. I didn't want to speak. So, I mean, my takeaway is that I don't know what it is. That might be another session or a one-on-one session, but maybe something happened. I mean, something happened to cause that shift.
A lot of the time there's defining moments in our life that happen. And we make a lot of the times unconscious decisions that basically there was a fact. So something would have happened and there's the facts, but the facts don't matter. It's the meaning that we put on the experience that matters. Yeah. And so when I'm a trained coach as well. And so when I have conversations with people, especially around public speaking, we will uncover some of this stuff because yes, you can learn all the skills, But until you shift some of the unconscious beliefs that are framing how you show up on a stage or to an audience, then you're not really going to show up as your full version of yourself. And so a lot of the time it is uncovering those things and working out what was the meaning that you created in that moment, or even the decision that you made. And you were talking about, you made a decision. I know I've done same things. You're not phenomenal in that area. Like, everyone's made these sort of decisions before, but basically it's like, what was the decision that you made, and then what other meanings could have we created around that situation? And so for me, I'm always looking at trying to reframe the meaning or the decision that the person made at a younger age, and it's really fascinating. It's almost like when you make a new decision, create a new meaning, it actually shapes all the way from that moment. You'll look at your life in a different way because you have awareness around it. And so, a lot of the work that I do with clients is actually, it's a deeper work than just skill work.
Yeah. So this may be off topic, but I think it's related. I've talked to a lot of speakers or people who speak often. Maybe they're not professional speakers like you, but they speak often. And I would often ask her, how do you do that without being nervous? I'm like, what are you talking about? I almost threw up before I got on stage, but they were able to get through it. But then also similarly, I was thinking, I just wrote down a few names of people that I've seen. Now, these are actors or performers that I've seen on stage with one personality. Like Steve Martin is hilarious and seems like he has no fear, right? When he's acting, but I've seen interviews with him, and he's so shy and introverted. Same with Prince, who's now no longer with us, but a phenomenal, very flamboyant actor on stage. And in interviews with him, he was very quiet and demure. So is there some similarities with that in speaking, or the personality types? Yeah, well, I think for me, it's about showing up as a 2.0 version of yourself on stage. And so there's like the normal version that we have a conversation over coffee. Yeah. But when you step on a stage, you need to show up as an amplified version of yourself. And that's essentially what you're seeing, is like they're showing up on stage as the amplified version of themselves. And I think one of the challenges I know for me is that, as a professional speaker, I've had to work through is there's a stage life and then there's a real life. And so there is a level of stepping onto being on a stage, and that, even if it's just a Facebook Live or stepping into a big conversation, a big negotiation or something like that. You have to show up as the bigger version of yourself as opposed to the smaller version of yourself, and a lot of that starts with just what you're telling yourself coming into the conversation. And so most people, there's a whole kind of ladder that I take people through, but most people come in asking questions like, what will they think of me? Will I fumble on my words? Will they judge me? Yeah. Like all these sort of questions. And as soon as you ask them, what do you think would come up in you if you're asking those questions? Yeah. You're going to feel fear, right? Yeah, of course.
Hesitation, nervousness. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but really the result a lot of the time, when someone who's on stage speaking and they're in that state, the impact on the audience is, I call it concern, because I don't know if you've ever seen someone speaking and you can just tell like they're viscerally nervous, and you actually feel a concern for them. You're like, right. Are they okay? Yeah. Because as an audience member, you want the speaker to win. You don't want them to fall flat on their face as much as we believe sometimes like the audience does. They don't. Yeah. They actually want you to win because it's really uncomfortable for them. Because
they're much more happy that they're up there than them in the seat in the audience, right?
Absolutely. They're not up there. And so, it's like it comes into your head game. So when I'm coming into a presentation, I'm acutely aware of the conversation that I'm having with myself, and the questions that I'm asking. And so, happy to share some of those things as well. So,
great. Just so you know, I want you to start thinking about it. I'm going to ask you for more questions, but I love stories on the show. I forgot to tell you. So if you can, while you're dual processing here, think of like a good story of a success story or something. Keep that in mind. What mindset or beliefs does a person have to become a great and persuasive communicator?
Well, in terms of a mindset, one of the biggest ones is that there's kind of two shifts that I think you need to make to become effective at speaking. One of the shifts is realizing that whenever you speak, you are selling something, and it's not like a pushy kind of sleazy selling. It's more like I don't care whether you're in corporate. You could be in corporate and you go from one department to another. So my background's in corporate. I would go from one department to another. I'd speak with the department head, and essentially I'm trying to sell them an idea. And if they don't get onto that idea, I know that they'll put their resources and their time and their energy towards some other project. And so whether you're in corporate or whether you're on a stage or you're a business owner and you're selling ideas, you're always selling. And so that's the first kind of transition that people need to realize, is that speaking is selling. It's not separate. It's the same thing. And it's not about even necessarily making an offer at the end. It's just realizing that any communication is selling.
Selling yourself.
Selling yourself, absolutely. Yeah. Selling an idea.
Selling confidence.
Selling confidence, absolutely. And so it's energetic. It is, there's multiple levels. The second revelation is that when you're selling something, is that selling is actually serving. And so I know for you, Bart, if you even think about your clients, the ones that probably have seen the greatest transformation in their world, in their life, in their finances, in their choices, in the quality of their life, would be the ones that have invested the most in you, and you've had the opportunity to therefore solve and serve at the highest level, right? Yeah. And so until we get to a place where we realize that me making an offer, and someone doesn't have to say yes, but me making an offer to a client is actually the greatest way that I can serve them, because it gives the client the opportunity, and they may not say yes, but if they do say yes, it gives me an opportunity to serve them at a higher level. And so when I'm teaching selling from stage, which is kind of one of my core focuses, that's like a big transition that I tend to see shifts in people, is realizing that selling's not sleazy, it's not pushy, it's not any of that. It's serving at the highest level. And so that's like a big shift, I think, that people need to take on if they want to position themselves as a market leader.
So you've kind of alluded to this earlier, but maybe we have a little more detail. So how do people use a stage, if you will, to sell their products and services? Yeah,
well, I think, depending on, how you do it, I take, like, probably one of the easiest ways to do this is running like a webinar. Webinar is just an online platform where you're just, sharing some slides and talking. It could be video or so forth. But basically, using a stage like that, which is fairly cost effective, you can get an audience fairly quickly. But essentially, you're providing value. And there's a few things that I think speaking does really well. First of all, like I mentioned before, it positions you. So it positions you as an authority. Second of all, it gives you a level of goodwill. And so that's like you have emotional resonance with your audience. And so when you're providing value and information that is valuable to the audience, then you build up goodwill. And then essentially you can make an offer that could be, set up a consultation, that could be an opt-in, or that could be literally, like for me, I'll sell online programs or high-level mastermind programs or things like that.
Okay. All right. All right. So here's one that's interesting to me. What is the difference between an amateur and a professional communicator?
I think a lot of the time it comes in the preparation and how you show up. One of the biggest shifts that when I used to do a lot of work with corporations is that realizing that I would come in and I'd say to them, so tell me your title, like, even for you, Bart, like tell me your title, a certified financial planner, whatever your title, CEO, founder. And I'd say, okay, cool, that's your title. Now, I want you to take that title off you, because that's not actually your title. Your title from moving forward from now on is, especially if you want to be a leader, is that you are a professional communicator. That's actually your title. Because the more you move into leadership, the more it becomes about language, the more it comes about communication, resonance with your clients, how you communicate those ideas, and the less it becomes about doing the stuff. Like when you first started out in your career, you're probably on the spreadsheets, you're doing the entries, you're making all the phone calls, you're doing the stuff. But now you're probably sitting back and having just conversations with clients, and then you send a memo to your assistant, and then they do all the stuff, right? Does that make sense?
You been in my office?
Totally. I've been texting with you, I know. And so the higher you go in leadership, the more it becomes about communication. And so the more of a grip that you have on your linguistic ability to communicate something, the more powerful you'll be as a leader in your business, in the marketplace. And so language essentially creates money. Language creates movement in your audience, it creates action. And so I think a professional understands that language is not, this is not an amateur game. This is something that any sort of investment of time or money in understanding how to communicate more effectively, I think is a good investment. And I know I'm a little bit biased, but just from literally working with thousands of business leaders around the world, that's one of the biggest distinctions that there's, that I find is the thing that defines people that go to their top 1%.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about that, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this. So for anyone who asks or whoever cares, as a student or as a parent, like, hey, what major should I do? I almost always say, communications, marketing communications, because no matter what if you're going to be a business person, if you're going to be an artist, that's something different. Well, maybe. Whatever you do, you need marketing communications, because to your point, it would be great, right? Even in my industry, you can pick anything else, a CPA if you want. If I put a shingle out on my door and said, this is Bart Zandbergen, CFP, and then just sit there and wait. Doesn't really work that way.
How good would that be?
So I think it's so important in business and in life. Actually, if we have enough time, I'm going to drill down and see how you use your profession with your family. So I'm sure you have some
tricks. Go for it. Ask me whatever you want, whatever you're interested in.
All right, let's go there. So now, is your wife in business with you?
Yeah. So she is my right-hand person in my life and in my business.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fascinating, because I think that, the more you go on in business, the more you realize what you're actually good at, and leaning into that is more and more, how you become a 10 out of 10 individual in your industry.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I have realized that we obviously have quite different strengths.
Yeah. And
so she is actually very heavily involved in the strategic decisions that we make, a lot of the hires, the employee hires, the structure, the process. Like, she's a lot more analytical in that sense, where I'm more involved in the offers and the communication and the sales and the machine of that type of thing. So understanding where your strengths are has been huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this still might work then. Are you able to use your tricks on her?
No. No, they do not work. It's actually funny, because whenever I do something with my wife, she'll kind of look at me and she has a discernment gift, so she can just pick. I feel like if I said something wrong in another state, she would know. Like, she'd call me, she'd text me, is something going on, Colin? So no, I can't get anything past her. But I mean, when it comes down to the kids, like some little things that I'll do is I'll say to them, what do you think I'm going to say about your room being in this state right now? And then they'll say, well, it's messy, I need to clean it up. So all of a sudden, like, they're creating the idea, I'm not creating the idea.
Okay.
And so, like, that's some, more persuasive conversation stuff.
Yeah, but sure.
But it definitely does work with the little ones.
Yeah. So you can mold them.
Absolutely.
Yes, all right. So what are the different types of stages that business owners cannot utilize to sell their ideas and products?
Are you saying we covered that a little bit. So webinars.
No, what they cannot utilize.
Cannot utilize to sell their ideas.
Is there any places where that would not work? Maybe not, huh? I guess it's all.
No, I think it was supposed to can utilize.
Okay.
The question. So good. Well, like I said, I think there's a hierarchy. Yeah. I think that in terms of selling your stuff, it is live stages, webinars, Facebook Lives, videos, any sort of, like, that's kind of the hierarchy to sell your stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what are some of the steps for becoming your level, a masterful speaker?
Well, there's kind of this journey that people tend to go on. The bottom level is where you're focused on yourself. Right, so I'll take you through the journey. So you're focused on yourself. You're worried about what people will think of you, and so everyone kind of starts there, right? That's where I started. The second level is where you start to trust yourself, but you're trusting your intuition, and it's what I call untrained intuition. And so untrained intuition is where you basically, you get up there. It's a classic, like, 21st speech. There's no structure, no process to what you're doing. There's no training behind it, but you're just like, okay, I'm just going to give it a go. The third stage is where you understand structure. And so a lot of people come to me for structure. So they'll say, Colin, how do I craft a presentation so that it makes sense, that it makes the points I want to make, and it flows? That's structure. The fourth level is stagecraft. So that's like, how do you tell stories? How do you share metaphors? How do you use your body to move? How do you anchor in the stage? It's like some of the more advanced, artful side of things. Then everything starts to shift, and this is the fifth level, which is when your whole reason for communicating is actually, you realize it's not about you at all, it's about the audience. And so, I mean, just recently I was working with a client, and we had a look at her presentation, and I said to her, she was presenting a case study. And this might even be relevant for yourself. Like, you've got case studies of clients and so forth that you potentially could present. And she was like, oh, I was just sharing like the lessons that I learned from the case study. And I said, well, this whole presentation is about you. And she's like, yeah, it is about me because it's about my client and my case study. And I said, the presentation has nothing to do with you. I said, put yourself in the seat of the audience. What would the audience want to learn from this case study? Like, what value would they want to take from it? And even in the framing of setting up the case study, I was like, how do we make this attractive and give some motivational juice for this case study so that the audience would want to lean in? And she was like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. I thought the presentation was about me presenting my case study. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with your case study, even though you're presenting the case study.
Yeah.
And so the biggest shifts that people make is realizing that their presentation literally has nothing to do with them. And they think they do. And that's what amateurs think. Amateurs think their presentation has, they're doing their speech. And a speech has nothing to do with you. And that's the fifth level. And the highest level is what I call purpose. And purpose is when you tap into, there is a greater reason for the communication piece that you're giving that's bigger than you, it's bigger than them, the audience, and it actually taps into a greater purpose. Like, I look at some of the greatest speeches of all time, like a Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. Yeah. You look at the conviction in his eyes, the conviction of the energy that he brings to that communication piece. And that piece has nothing to do with him. Even though he's saying, I have a dream, it's not even his dream. It's not even the audience's dream. He's trying to tap into a greater purpose that's even beyond just the people listening. It's like this core conviction about creating change on the planet. And so when you tap into that, and I think anyone can find that, doesn't matter what you're selling, because you think about the flow-on effect, like even, for you and the impact that it makes on your clients, and then you think about the relationship that they will have in their families, the peace, the financial peace they have in their families, how they relate with their kids, how they show up with their family because they have more financial peace. You tap into that purpose. It's not even about money, even though that is an outcome of it. It's actually about the peace that they have, the connection that they have with their family. You tap into that and you picture them relating with their kids, relating with their wife, with their husband, whoever your client is. And all of a sudden the presentation that you're giving has nothing to do with you, has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the purpose that you're creating and leaving like the mark on the planet.
Yeah. Wow, you've taken speaking to a whole new level, Colin. I love it. All right, I'm going to take that case study as a story. That was pretty good. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And because we're out of time, so I'm going to use that as a story.
Yeah, we could keep going. Yeah.
But it's been so awesome having you here today, and I do have the honor of asking you what I call my final thought question. So please share with us, if you will, your ultimate lesson learned as your career as a professional speaker or coach.
I think for me, reflecting on the ultimate lesson was that all of us have a level of genius that we've been given. It's like something that comes easy, and things that come easy, you need to work hard on. And so the quicker you discover what that genius is, like that thing that you could be known for as a 10 out of 10 for, the thing that comes easy, you work hard at. And so whatever that is, that's for me has been the lesson that, I look back at one time I was a pizza delivery driver, and I was the worst pizza delivery driver you would ever experience. There's a whole story around that, which we could get to at some point. But now, I worked out what my genius was. And then from there, I've been able to lean in on it. And so I just want to encourage all your listeners to think about, to work out what is that genius and what is the thing that you can lean in on, and then, put all your chips in that area.
Oh, I love it. We're going to have you back and find out about the pizza story
and
the
pizza story is good.
Genius. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. You're going back for sure. Colin, how can people reach you?
So I'd love to connect with people on Instagram, which is just Colin Boyd with one L, COLIN-BOYD. And you can check out my website, which is colinboyd.co.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a country singer. I can't get the .com. Oh. He's touring around, but I've hit him up, but he won't give it to me.
Yeah.
So it's his .co.
Well, Colin, thanks so much for having you coming in today. It was great having you in studio. I think this is something we're going to have to revisit. And thanks so much to everyone who tuned in. We look forward to being back next week. Cheers.
Tune in next week for the latest edition of the Zandbergen Report, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Catch up on our recent shows by visiting bartzandbergen.podbean.com. The Zandbergen Report is also available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Interested in being a featured guest on our show or have a question you'd like to hear us answer? Email podcast@bartzandbergen.com. Bart A. Zandbergen, CFP, and Letitia Burbaum, AIF, are registered investment advisors with Optivest Inc. and registered representatives with Gramercy Securities Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered by Optivest Inc. under SEC registration.
Everybody, it's time once again for another episode of OC Spotlight, where we take a look at the most amazing people and incredible organizations making an impact right here in our community. Boy, we got some good ones here in today. A full house with our Public Affairs Director, Claudia Shambo. Hey, Claudia.
Hello, Mark. Hello, everybody. Welcome to OC Spotlight. This is the March 9th, 2018 edition. My guests today are Cal Optima's CEO, Michael Schrader, and Director of Strategic Development, Cheryl Morong. As Chief Executive Officer, Michael Schrader collaborates with the Board of Directors to set the organization's strategic vision and ensure its successful implementation. He oversees all aspects of the organization and maintains positive working relationships with member, provider, and community representatives, as well as federal, state, and county agencies. He serves on the boards of the California Association of Health Plans and the Local Health Plans of California. His more than 20 years of executive leadership experience is in managed care plans in California and Massachusetts. Prior to Cal Optima, he was the Chief Operating Officer for Boston Medical Center HealthNet Plan and the Chief Operating Officer for the CenCal Health in Santa Barbara. He earned his bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Arizona. So healthcare is rocket science, folks. And his master's degree in business administration from UCLA. Mr. Schrader's been Chief Executive Officer of Cal Optima since 2012. My other guest today is Cheryl Morong, and she is the Director of the Strategic Development of Cal Optima. She's also served in leadership roles in care management and community outreach at other health plans. Prior to her roles in healthcare, Ms. Morong has worked closely with the community as CEO of the not-for-profit Council on Aging, Orange County, for several years. While at the Council on Aging, Orange County, Cheryl Morong served on the Cal Optima Member Advisory Committee and on the Board of Directors of California Health Advocates. She currently serves on the advisory member of the Orange County Children's Partnership, the steering committee for the county's Whole Person Care Pilot, the Leadership Council of the Orange County Strategic Plan for Aging. Cheryl has completed her MBA with an emphasis in health administration from Brandman University of Chapman University System and a master's degree in gerontology from the California State University Fullerton. Both Michael Schrader and Cheryl Morong join me in studio. Welcome to OC Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Glad to be here.
It's wonderful having you here, and congratulations on reaching your silver anniversary. So let's start with you briefly covering Cal Optima. It's the single largest health insurer that started, as I was alluding to, the silver anniversary in 1993, created by the Orange County Board of Supervisors. Tell us about those origins and the population that's your target.
Okay, so Cal Optima is a public health plan for low-income people in Orange County. We provide health coverage for nearly 1 in 4 Orange County residents, including children, seniors, people with disabilities, and families. And our programs include Medi-Cal for the low income and Medicare, but it's not your traditional Medicare program.
In what ways?
It's a Medicare program for people who are dual eligible, meaning they have both Medi-Cal and Medicare coverage. So that basically means it's for low-income seniors.
Okay.
And CalOptima opened its doors in 1995. The real compelling reason to create CalOptima back then was that there were plenty of providers in Orange County, and by providers I mean hospitals, physicians, pharmacies, that sort of thing. Plenty of providers, but too few of them who were willing to serve the Medi-Cal population because of low rates from the state and difficulty working with the state, meaning Sacramento.
And a larger share being seen in urgent and emergency room kinds of facilities.
That's right.
Less preventative care, less primary care.
Yeah, so the County of Orange was one of the first to say, give us that money that you spend on the Medi-Cal population in Orange County, and we'll do it ourselves. We'll create our own health plan, and that health plan was CalOptima.
All right. And so after having operated that long, there was a kind of a lead up. There were a number of different organizations that were summoning up this need to find out how effectively you're delivering the service and collaborating. Tell me about your agency's member health needs assessments and how you're going to be administering that actual assessment throughout. Cheryl?
Sure. So we went out and conducted a very large and comprehensive member health needs assessment, primarily because although there are other comprehensive or community health needs assessments that exist in the county, we really wanted to focus on the very diverse population of specifically Medi-Cal beneficiaries that CalOptima serves. So we decided to engage with the consultant to help us. We also enlisted the help of the Social Science Research Center at Cal State Fullerton, and we selected a very large sample size of our membership. And we knew that it was larger than what we really needed for statistical significance, but because of our diverse population, we really wanted to ensure that we were representing our full membership needs.
Sort of a critical mass for underrepresented entities in the county.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, so what were some of those underrepresented groups?
We actually sent surveys to our membership across the entire county to make sure that every geographic region was represented. We sent surveys in all of what we call our threshold languages. So that is 7 different languages that are essentially the most prevalent languages spoken by our membership.
Go ahead.
All of the 7 languages?
All 7, yeah.
Sure. So that's English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, Arabic, and Farsi.
And not Tagalog or not Filipino or that.
We
okay, so
don't have enough
7.
membership.
Okay,
yeah,
that's not all right.
But we did also conduct focus groups in other languages as well. We had one that was conducted in American Sign Language, and we actually conducted a focus group in Marshallese as well, because there is a Marshallese population in Orange County, and one in Cambodian as well.
So the sociology researchers at Cal State Fullerton were able to give you real insight about being culturally sensitive and making sure your needs assessment captured the essence of these beneficiaries of your care.
Yes.
Services.
Yes.
Right. I think at CalOptima it's really important that we operate efficiently. So 97 cents of every dollar goes out to paying providers in the community to deliver care to our members. It's also important that we deliver on quality. So the National Committee for Quality Assurance rated CalOptima the #1 health plan in the state of California based on the quality of care that our members receive. And that's a crucial rating because that's the same rating that every year it's posted in the Consumer Reports magazine. So that's a big deal. It's a national rating. NCQA looks at all health plans across the nation, says, CalOptima, you're #1 in California for Medi-Cal. So it's important at CalOptima that we operate efficiently and that there's quality. And part of that is doing a member health needs assessment to understand the people that we serve, to understand their specific and unique needs so that we can, in the most efficient way, deliver health care to them.
So it's important that we all appreciate just how thoroughly this needs assessment was that you conducted. There were it was 50-some, 100 participants that were assessed?
We actually mailed surveys to about 42,000 of our members, and we received back a pretty good response rate. 14% response rate was what we had, and that represented over 5,800 respondents.
All right. And so are there any other kinds of features that you learned from the partners that designed this for you?
Well, we really designed it collaboratively. We worked closely with not only our internal staff and our consultants and Cal State Fullerton staff, but we also partnered very closely with the County of Orange, who had conducted a community health needs assessment. We had representatives from our member advisory committee. So they all provided input not only to who we should be reaching out to, but the kinds of questions that we wanted to put into the design of the survey. And that was to make sure that we didn't replicate any of the other surveys that had been done previously.
Well done. So were there any surprises? There's always got to be some some aha moments that you had as your first of all, maybe you're surprised that you did so well with that kind of return rate, because it was a written form, right?
Yeah.
They mailed it back to you, or was this? Were there any person-to-person kinds of assessments?
I think what I like to say is that if you're one of our CalOptima members, one of those 800,000 individuals in Orange County, or if you're a provider in Orange County, a hospital, a physician, a pharmacist, you know exactly what CalOptima is. And I think one of the things the study yielded is that maybe not. Maybe our members know who CalOptima is, but aren't completely familiar with the benefits that they're entitled to and how to access the health care that they're entitled to under CalOptima. And so I think we learned a lot about that, about the need to better educate our members about how to effectively access health care and get the preventative services that they need.
So was the need to? I don't think by design they're an interactive kind of process, but did it turn out to be somewhat of a two-way kind of informing? You find out about your prospective clients, and they find out about how they benefit from the CalOptima membership?
I think for us it helped us to understand what's next, what we need to do to most effectively deliver resources in the most efficient way.
If you just joined us, you're listening to OC Spotlight, and I'm your host, Claudia Shamba. My guests are Michael Schrader, CEO, and Cheryl Morong, Director of Strategic Development of CalOptima, the Orange County public agency that manages programs funded by the state, federal government, and locally too, to provide members with access to quality health care services. We're talking about the needs assessment that's been conducted. It's over. You're sort of churning this data internally, or do you have to bring in a consultant to help with the massaging the data?
All the analysis work is complete at this point.
It's all done.
Yes.
So, now, okay. So, let's talk about then where you're going to take that analysis, and it goes back out to all the agencies that are contributors, agencies, nonprofits, and everybody, so they can see what. So what kind of vehicle is that like to sort of your analysis to them?
Well, they were very closely involved with this all the way through. So not only did we mail surveys, but we also conducted focus groups across the county. Our community-based organization partners assisted us with those by recruiting their communities to participate in the focus groups, by encouraging people to send in their surveys, and by just working closely with us on giving their thoughts and their perspectives on our members, because they serve them as well. So now we are going out and doing several events in the community to disseminate the results of the survey. We'll have a community event on March 21st called the Community Alliances Forum, and that'll be at the Delhi Community Center at 9 a.m.
Okay, in Santa Ana.
Correct.
A reliable community. Everybody knows where that is.
Because now the next step is we work with so many partners out in the community. I mean, our provider network includes almost all of the hospitals, including UCI Medical Center, St. Joseph, Hoag, Children's Hospital of Orange County, Fountain Valley. We've got more than 80% of the physicians in Orange County, all of the chain pharmacies, long-term care facilities. So now the next step is really to educate all of our provider partners about what we learned and how we can better deliver care to the people that we serve.
Well, you have many resources around community radio that can help with public service announcements to make sure that we can get that message out, besides with the interview today. So that's March 21st. The Community Alliance Forum will be, and will there be additional forums that will release your findings? And
I think as we look at the study and look at what we learned about how to better serve foster children, how to better serve our homeless members, how to better serve people with mental illness, people with disabilities, that there's going to be targeted approaches as we work with our provider partners and better serve those people.
And I'm wondering, are veterans also? There must be veterans that are beneficiaries as another group.
There are. So we actually reached out to very, very many groups that we felt had never really had their voices heard before. So that included veterans, it included teenagers and young adults with autism, it included faith-based groups, every language group that I mentioned previously.
Right.
So many different groups that we reached out to.
So
There's a lot of community meetings at CalOptima as a public agency. All of the meetings are open to the public, so and we use those forums to sort of get the word out. So our board of directors meets on a monthly basis. Those meetings are open to the public. The board itself has 3 different advisory committees. One is made up of providers from the community. Another is made up of member representatives, so people who represent foster children, seniors, people with mental illness. And CalOptima is also out in the community. So, for example, in February, we held 6 meetings in 6 different cities during the day and in the evenings for parents of children that are in the California Children's Services Program.
Wow.
So these are children with muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy and forms of cancer. I mean, these are children with really significant needs. And there's a transition that's coming